There we go. And we're live. Hello.
Well, hello. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm wonderful. It seems like we've been talking about this for a while, but honestly, it's just we've been talking for a while, and this is just happening today. So, welcome to everyone who may be joining us right now and getting ready to join us. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Valentine's Day here in the States, and it's also International Book Giving Day globally. And both of those made it the perfect day. Oh my gosh, hey Mary. Made it the perfect day for us to be celebrating and talking to this guru genius, Eiry Rees Thomas. Before we get started, I want to say a special thank you to Kalila, who is here yet again this month. She started our Meet the Author series off last month where she interviewed me. And she assists. I don't even feel comfortable saying assist because she really does keep me on my toes. She does a lot. And so she's joining us today to help navigate some of the comments if we just get too deep into the conversation. So thank you for being here, Kalila. Let's go ahead and dig in because, like I said, we've been talking about this for a while, and it's 10 o'clock in Wales right now. It's 10 o'clock. Mm-hmm. It's late. It's late. I would normally be under the bed.
Not for me. I'm usually late. I'm an owl.
You an owl?
Yep.
Is that where the creative time, or is that the wind down time?
Oh, I don't know. My brain never switches off usually. So just like yours.
Hi, Sue. Sue says, hi, Eiry. Bill and I are watching. She's sending hugs. She's sending hugs. And then Kalila, she's chiming in. Okay, so we're ready. So welcome again. Thank you so much for being here. This is the second installment of Meet the Author series. In the Meet the Author series, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this series this year was because, for one, we're amidst changing times, and we have to find new ways to connect with one another and keep the conversations that need to be front and center. And right now, what we've witnessed in education is there's been a massive shift. Online learning has become prevalent. And in an effort to continuously bridge the gap for students and scholars that may or may not have access to quality literacy development instruction, I and Imagiread, we birthed this, series as a part of Operation 10,000 Children Imagireading. You can find all of that good stuff on Imagiread.com. Hi, Nicholas. If you care to read about it. But today, I have the privilege and the honor, and I mean this with every thread of my being, to be joined by this phenomenal woman. She is phenomenal. Eiry Rees Thomas, who imagined or reimagined. I think they were already in the digisphere. They were already in the universe, and she just reimagined the Flitlits just because it's so perfect. I have the honor to speak with her this afternoon, where it's night in her time, about her ingenuity and literacy and imagination and all these other wonderful things. So hi again, Eiry. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure, really. Thanks very, very much. And I'd like to say hello there to Sue and Bill, who have been honorary Flitlits right from the beginning, even dressed up as Flitlits at a special day at school of celebration. So lovely to see you here. And some good friends, Nicholas and Francis, Shani Wood, who is very responsible for my PR, and I'm very grateful for, and Melinda. Oh, thank you all. And Mary, Sarah, everybody, thank you for being here.
You see what I mean? She's a superstar, and she always tries to downplay that. Like, oh, she's so modest, but she's a superstar, and everybody's here to see her. I'm so glad that you all have found time in your busy schedules to join us. So let's go ahead and cut to the chase. When did we meet? How did we meet? Do you remember?
Well, it was about 10 years ago, I think, and I don't think either of us really realized that we were treading the same path then. We were just friends, and we were following each other's progress and, going along, and I had no idea really initially that we were so aligned, really. It's sort of, you're a clone of me and I'm a clone of you in all respects. And it's just sort of blossomed from there. And you inspired me all these years. And for that, I really, really thank you. And for everybody who's coming in now and all the friends who've inspired me and written reviews and prompted me, I'm just thrilled to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you. I'm going to warn everybody in advance. I'm really sensitive, but I'm sensitive when it comes to that alignment in those relationships that I've been able to connect and I've been able to grow with. And Eiry is definitely one of those people. So I can't believe it's 10 years ago, though. It just seems like yesterday. Maybe because it's like we just get along so well. We just get along so well.
Yeah, we cross many barriers as well. We sort of break down a lot of stereotypes, and that's a pleasure in itself, really.
It really is. That leads me to the next point. So much has happened, right? There have been so many tensions. There's been a lot of discord, and the world is witnessing what I'd say I probably will never witness in my lifetime. Perhaps my children will. Perhaps your grandchildren will, even your children. There's a unique call for us to unify in our beliefs and in our values. And it's been a challenge for those of us who believe that, unity consciousness and being together and working together as community. It's been a challenge for us, right? The goal has always been to get the information and get education out to those who not just need it, but who also want it, right? The gaps that this pandemic has afforded us, to look at again and look at closely, is there are a lot of children that in their families who need support. They need support. And this is one of the reasons why we wanted to have this conversation today. We want to talk a little bit about what the Flitlits have already done to support literacy development, cultural inclusion, diversity, and imagination. Because the article you and I were talking about the other day, imagination is currency. It's always been currency. When you can dream something up and just take off with it, you'll never be alone. You'll always know, that you're home, if you will. And that's very important for children now more than anything, because as mental health continuously becomes a pressing issue, especially, post-COVID, what are children going to do? Well, what are their parents going to do? What is the community going to do? If we center that we always have imagination,
that will always be there, Tiffany. It's just a question of going with it and working with it and taking it forward. And it's needed now more than ever, as you said, and it's filling in the gaps, really, and just a progression on what we've been doing for years, but actually taking account of the current situation and ploughing even more in if we can, and sort of aligning our materials and hoping that we, sort of serve all children, everywhere. That's our aim. It always has been. And I don't think that will ever change.
Me neither. So you just touched on something. You talked about how we've known each other for 10 years, right? Let's talk about, your inspiration, because I really do want to get to the Flitlits. This is not the Flitlits' first go around, right? This is not the first rodeo for the Flitlits. The Flitlits has been around for some time. Mm-hmm. But I want to talk about briefly, what encourages you? Do you even know where all of this comes from? Do you even know how it comes together?
I think about that at times. My mother was actually a poet and wrote for children, and my brothers were illustrators and a calligrapher, sculptor, sort of brought up in that sort of environment and cultural stimulation, and heavily influenced, I have to say, by Winnie the Pooh. That the camaraderie, the humour, the community, the fun. always had a great impact on me. And when I started to write, and that was after a serious accident over 20 years ago now, where I fell from grace really between 2 floors and had extensive injuries. And I had to give up my work as a health professional. I had been working in various specialties, including special needs and children with multicultural families and various other avenues. And following my accident, I really had to pull myself together when I sort of got over the legacy of my injuries. And I've still got disabilities to contend with now. But I picked up in my writing again and really didn't expect to do anything with them apart from literally leaving them as you read in a drawer, and sort of won a competition, well, shortlisted actually in an international literacy competition, which got me onto a publishing course about 10, 11 years ago. And things just took off from there, really. Pilot work at school. And I have to mention, absolutely have to mention here, someone who can't come into the conversation tonight because she's not on Facebook. But I blagged myself into the first pilot school as part of this publishing program, completely blind, with a load of character illustrations, and there were cartoon characters then, and a map. That's all I had, 13 characters, or fewer then actually, and a map. And came across this incredible teacher named Melody Jones. And things just turned around for me from that point. She's a literacy coordinator. She's not teaching at the moment, but we're still in touch. She's inspired me. And I actually think in terms of, I don't write for children. I actually write with children. I think that's where I differentiate mainly, because we worked on this concept in the schools with the children, the target audience, with the parents, the librarians, the carers, the teachers, and the children actually were part and parcel of the whole thing. And it just grew and grew and grew. And it's still taking off in certain directions, and I'm not quite sure where it's going to end. But I'm enjoying the journey.
I think it's everlasting. So you said a lot there, and it's true what they say, you learn something new every day. I never knew about the accident. All these years, we've never talked about the accident. So the perseverance and the resilience there, and you and I have talked about the resilience, right? The perseverance there, and how sometimes, things aren't happening to us, they're happening for us, right? Even though they may seem like this is horrible, but it birthed your dream coming back to life, right? So you were able to revisit that imagination, and out of it came the Flitlits. So when I first discovered the Flitlits, I think it was available at the time. I was able to get it on the iPad.
Yes, they were cartoon characters at the time, and they were invited actually onto the curriculum here in Wales, and they're still there actually. They were digitized as stories, maths games, and grammar exercises that I was involved with for some time. So those are still there, and it was a good grounding for me, really, to work with an illustrator then who isn't my illustrator now, who's sadly passed, unfortunately. Yeah. And I'd love to pay tribute to him, if I may. So it's been a progression. I had the Welsh government have been very, very good to me in terms of helping me to bring 3 apps in a series together, which took a long time. And I see Sarah on there. She and I were working together on apps and all the challenges involved at the time. And we both sort of moved beyond that now. But it was all a learning experience that led towards my meeting James Field, who was an incredible illustrator that to this day, I cannot believe he took me on, because, I was an unknown really. And his artwork, pardon me, is a sheer delight. So, we worked together so well. And it just sort of went on from there. So they became the Flitlits, initially the cartoon characters with Flitwits. But it's been fun, and I've enjoyed it.
It's been like amazing just to see it evolve and to come into where we are now, which I'm so excited to talk about. I'm always going to feel like we don't have enough time because there's so much to talk about. But I love that it's been out for some time. You've had this support, and it's just grown into this universe. You talked a little bit about James, and we've talked about him over time, right? And all of the incredible work that went into, redeveloping and characterizing and like really getting your vision, and how much, you really are paying homage to him through this recreation and this re-release.
Yes.
And all this time we've been talking about him, I had never actually gone to his website until like a couple weeks ago. And I went to his website and was like, whoa, I mean, his work is phenomenal. So the Flitlits remind me again, was this his first take on, animation, if you will, in the character sense in children's work?
He had written children, he had illustrated for children before, but not in this particular format. So we were both sort of working together on a new challenge, really. And he got very involved with the developers for the apps, and they lived quite close by. So we were able to have constant meetings, fortnightly, monthly, whatever we needed. And James, I had no idea, absolutely no idea, until after James's passing, that he had actually created illustrations for the apps. For instance, the landmarks on the map, and the plots. He did train as an architect for a short while, I believe, before he went into illustration. He's actually created these buildings on architectural lines built up on layer upon layer upon layer. There's a book in it on just how James created these incredible landmarks for the project. And I had no idea until I opened up the files and realized that I had a treasure trove of materials that I've now been able to access to create 74 books in total. And that's half UK English and half US English. They're clones of each other, really. And I'm sort of in the processes of creating them in Welsh. So I've been able to just, draw from this pool of material that James left for me. And so he's there, he's sort of creating with me, I always feel. And I've had to create some new characters myself, but the children have helped me in school. They came up with the ideas. I had two, they thought I didn't have... They wanted a cheat, for instance, and I didn't have a cheat. So we created a cheat amongst us. And so a cheat became one of the characters. And, they created more and more characters and more plots, because the idea of the concept is that the map of the ethereal land, where it's a land lost in time, where the characters float. And they have a bird's eye view of their world beneath them, and there's a sense of freedom and movement where they can move about, and in the fresh air, they're outside playing. It's a holistic world. It's very, very green, as James depicted. So it is a question of sort of developing on that, really, and it's never ending. We then had new islands outside of the map, and we had new characters coming in from another island, and accepted and added to the diversity within the community, and it's children just loved the variety, and they just became sort of residents of this weird and ethereal world that they'd never seen before, and they just sort of visited and discovered and explored, and we had a lovely sort of Flitlits celebratory day with a party, and the children were on stage dancing and singing and rapping and all sorts of things, and we all painted our skin green, because they're all hues of green, so that there's no sort of suggestion of tokenism there in any way. They're all weird and wonderful. They don't look at all like...
Totally.
They don't look at all, but that's for a reason, because they're so different. They're historically different, they're stylistically different, But for that reason, it encourages debate, and it challenges, differences and acceptance and all that you're about, Tiffany, which is community and inclusiveness and sort of camaraderie, all of these things, such as in Winnie the Pooh, again, several comes together.
Yeah, human bias, where we want to separate, that's our thing sometimes. And that's never been my thing. I don't know that it's ever been your thing. It's one of the reasons why we get along so well. I love that, just in thinking about the energy of the project, James and his contribution, right? Architects are the best of both worlds. Like they are able to converge both that left and right brain. And it's like, I used to think I wanted to be an architect. I don't know if I told you this. After my father told me I could not go to school for interior design, so I'll just go for architecture. But nobody told me I needed a bunch of math and science. I was like, oh, that's not going to work. I'm a literature.
You have other talents.
I do. And it's ironic that I love science and math now. But back then it was all literature, right? Just this love of English. And that's where I fared well. So once I got into architecture, though, you just started really to understanding concepts and how they come together. So for you to look back and see, oh, I have all of these layers. I have landmarks. It just makes sense. It wasn't a coincidence that James was the illustrator, right? It wasn't a coincidence. James's work needed, and the Flitlits needed James. Like they were seeking each other, if that makes sense. And like you said, the children they showed up and they helped you with the rest. Because you were writing it for them. You're writing it for them. Beautiful story. So that being, you touched on something else, and I just want to bring it back to the forefront, and I don't want to harp on it, but what we've also been talking about, and with this conversation with the Flitlits and everything else, literacy development, where it's culturally authentic and diverse and inclusive, and it seeks to unify, and it seeks to instill social emotional intelligence, right? These things that really contribute to a whole child, health and wellness, learning and personal development, communities, social relationships. When we think about that and we think about where we are right now, and again, the mental health aspects and what we'll see maybe 2-3 years down the line from now, and the reimagining of the Flitlits, what's, because we're going to talk about the re-release, but when you encounter those children who discover the Flitlits for the first time, what do you imagine they're thinking? What do you think they're thinking?
Well, for instance, humor is very much part of the Flitlits. I couldn't write anything unless it was humorous, and there was a lot of fun involved. So I always imagine in my head, if I write something humorous in the stories, will the children laugh at this? And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. So you just can't take anything for granted. So it's a question of testing the whole time, sort of taking them into the schools and, sort of working with the children and seeing what works for them. And if it works for them, it works for me. I suppose that's how it works for me, really.
I get it. And what do they, I mean, they tell you, they share different things with you, but have there ever been, one or two comments that have just resonated with you over time, the response that have just stayed with you?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of my biggest rewards, was when I was working with Melody at my first pilot school, was that she said that she didn't have materials that she could find it that engage children maybe with special needs, some on the autistic spectrum maybe, and that this project sort of fulfilled a need that she was so excited about, and just they worked on it absolutely every single day for a whole term, because every plot on the map represents an area in the curriculum. So they chose an area on the curriculum, but it's the children who with poor sightedness. I've got two characters with disabilities, but they're just regular crew members. We don't just draw attention to them. They just regular crew
right.
members.
Mm-hmm.
And that they just sort of attach themselves to a character or characters, or maybe to a plot. And it was just a reward, really, when they were on stage alive, and I could actually see that they were thoroughly enjoying themselves. And they created their own songs. They performed their own stage production, and they sang their own raps, and they had artwork all around them. It was quite magical, really, and that replicated itself in other schools as well, as far as Dubai. So that was very, very nice to get a 5-star review from Dubai as well. So it's gone beyond these shores, and that was nice.
Embracing the uniquity. When we think about disabilities or being differently able, it's just being unique. Isn't that what we're supposed to be?
Well, it depends how you classify unique. I think every single child in the classroom, each one of them was unique in a different way.
Absolutely.
And I think, I wanted to engage all genders. That was the one thing, to encourage, boys, especially reluctant readers. I wanted a bunch of characters so that, everybody can relate to one particular character at least. And that works for me, which is why I write with a crew rather than just a single character. So it's that's how it's worked out, and that's how I'll probably carry on.
Very good. Speaking, I think this is the perfect time. I'm gonna read. Can I do the funny fair right now?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. You want to tell our audience? I am just loving all of these comments. It's Valentine's Day. It's Love Day, and there's so much love happening in the comments over here. Oh my gosh. That first performance was magical. We've talked about the performance, but I'm absolutely sure I would have to have been there to really, really be enamored with it, because just hearing it turn into a full-fledged production is like, I'm envisioning, oh my gosh, just the children and the lights and the stage, and just, it was spectacular. I relive it every time you tell it. But I wanna, for those of you who may not have heard about the performance or may not have seen it or witnessed it, I want to just give you a little bit. So what can you tell us about the Funny Fair before I read it?
Okay, the Funny Fair, I think, was the very first story that I wrote, and it is a children's favorite. Actually, I make it very difficult for myself when I write, because I think from the heart I write like a Celtic person. A Welsh type of lyricism is my format, really. It is what you'd say telenegol in Welsh, or harp, like it's a musical language. So I can't really write in any other form that makes sense to me other than lyrical. But the challenge is then not to actually put words in just for a rhyme's sake, or to put in a word just to make the rhythm complete or anything. It mustn't be contrived. It has to run smoothly. Every word needs to have a place, and it needs to be there. And they do contain an awful lot of grammatical structures, but you wouldn't know it. And the children, the idea being, my sort of strap line is read, laugh and learn, so that they actually read, laugh and learn without realizing that they're actually learning. So so that's the Funny Fair. So you read it and we'll see how it goes.
Okay, let's see if I can. I want to do it justice, because it's such a wonderful excerpt. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is the Funny Fair. Star Glee winked at Fussbutt, and fun filled the air. The lights of a Ferris wheel twinkled in pairs. Funfair melodies jingled around and floated like clouds that sprinkled sound. Jester Bit, with his family, rushed from Plank Plot. More and more Flitlits lined up at a trot. They glowed in the night, the lights and the glare, and dashed to share the merry air. That was just a brief excerpt of the Funny Fair. So I don't know if you all heard it, but it essentially has that rhythmic, that prose to it, like that Eiry talked about. How long is it total?
It's about 800 words, I think. So, but every page has an illustration, And that's quite uncommon for this age group, which is the 8 to 11-year-olds. It was just through research and development at schools prior and afterwards that I discovered that there was a hiatus in provision right there in the middle, in the intermediate group between 8 and 11 years of age, where children weren't ready to leap from picture books straight into early chapter novels. Especially for the 60% or so of visual learners in the classroom. So I do tend to consider myself as a visual storyteller, if you like. It brings about a juxtaposition between the text and the illustrations, which is where James was such an expert in bringing out the emotions in the characters. And it brings so many opportunities for lesson planning. They just go on and on and on, because you have your text and you have your illustration per page right through the series. So there's very, very little material out there that satisfies that need. So I thought, well, this is going to be hard. If nobody else wants to write about it, why am I putting myself out there? But I thought, I'm in for a challenge. And it was difficult, but I think we got there in the end. And
I can't tell it was difficult. I can't tell at all.
Well, that's the challenge, to make it sound natural and without it being obvious that there's a lot of grammatical structuring in there. So that was good.
I know. And we talked about the visual learner, the kinesthetic learner, and how 21st century learning and development, right? Because we're in this conversation, or it's happening right now, where STEM and STEAM and stream education is prevalent, right? And how we bridge the gap is by engaging all of the senses, right? So visually, you see one thing, but then auditorily, we hear something else, and it allows them to really, it piques the imagination. You're wondering what else is happening behind the scenes and not. And so it really does give the entire audience, the children, the teachers, the librarians, everybody who has an opportunity to take it in, to really get what each character is seeking to present, to bring forth. And there's a lot of what I like to call rhetoric here. It is humorous. And there's a lot of reading between the lines that I believe, is a part of functional literacy, right? Even if children can't make out, the grammatical order, and they can't make out, that this goes here and this goes there. If they hear it in that way, they'll become more familiar with it over time. And if they can engage with it. And this is one of the reasons why I love this re-release of the Flitlits as a whole entire reading system, because there's so much. And ladies and gentlemen, if you've not been following Eiry, if you've not been following the Flitlits, I encourage you to do so like today, because this system, I don't even have words for it. And I love words. I don't even have words for it. It's so comprehensive. It allows every learner, and if you're a teacher, in my eyes, you're a learner. It allows every learner to gravitate and to manipulate something bigger and better to teach and expound on. It's incredible. And so when we're thinking about that, and we're thinking about sensory and how children learn and what they gravitate towards, and encouraging them to be unique, and encouraging them to be who they are, and above all, be whole, be happy, be healthy, contribute to their communities and to society as a whole, we're thinking about this concept of being able to navigate it all. But it's definitely begins with literacy and the literacy development. So again, I love this re-release. Everybody is going to love it when it comes out. Do we, wait a minute, speaking of which, do we have a date?
There are always challenges, and my latest challenge is the idea had been to put them out as on Amazon initially to test the waters, but then of course I'm having to learn a lot about formatting and things that are particularly quite boring, but I have to learn.
Tell me about it.
But you produced your own book, and it's wonderful too. It's Watertime Ma, so that was an inspiration for me as well. But where were we? I think it's a question of yes, formatting, wasn't it?
And the date.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I meant to put them out as just flat formatting, where as you normally see on the iPads, and you just scroll through and it's image after image with either embedded font or maybe a separate page with a font next to it. But things have moved ahead in technology now, and even Amazon are talking about the need for EPUBs, which is just digital e-publications, and this is the future. Now, my aim with the Flitlits is to get them out globally, because I want to reach those children where maybe they have only access to mobile phones, maybe old mobile phones, maybe just a shared screen in a large building. And, they have to be EPUBs before you can do that. And
Yeah.
the educators are out there to help us, but you have to do so much of the work yourself. So I'm in conversation with the aggregators at the moment to see how we can overcome the problem of EPUBs don't really cater for images for children's picture books.
Yeah.
So they're going to try their best to try and accommodate what I've got. And if that doesn't work, well, we'll have to think again. But that's the challenge at the moment. So it's holding me back a little bit. But hopefully we'll get everything out in the next 3 months or so.
Yeah, the suspense. 3 months. People are going to be amazed.
You have to do some audio files for me by then. So
yeah, totally. Where I won't be so, because I didn't do it justice just then. The work is just so rich and so decadent that I really do need to, I can do it on camera because I'm a performer. That it's what it is. But when I'm alone or when it's just me and you, it's just different. It's just different. So I didn't do it any justice, but just, ladies and gentlemen, wait till it's released. There's so much opportunity to explore so many different things. And thinking about that, one of the things that we talked about before is, how parents, how teachers, how librarians can make this multi-use. It's not the kind of system that just drops, you drop it in somebody's lap and you say, hey, read this, well, I want you to read this and give me your feedback. There's so much that you can draw out of it and turn it into, well, thank you, Sarah. I tried. It's, what it is. It's just because this is normal for Eiry and I. This is normal. This is a normal. And I have to remember there are people in the room. So it's so much that you can draw out of it and expand upon it, right? In terms of one small, even just like you said, just one illustration, how they've been recreated from the originals. You can go with so much dialogue and discussion and conversation from there, and then focus in on all of the inherent parts and the structure of the literal form. I'm excited. So 3 months is like, okay, I can wait 3 months. I can wait 6 months because I know that there's 70 or is it 80 total? How many is it total?
At the moment, it'll be 74, but I've got another 20 in Welsh later on in the year. So, but then there's colouring books and James's, the books for a tribute book for James, and there's numeracy cards that include dyslexic font. I try to use dyslexic font all the way through, but Joan Brennan, I don't know whether she's here. I think she might be. She is very much into dyslexia and using the dyslexic font, but that's the problem with EPUBs again. So that's something. That's something, another hurdle I have to get over. But I'm going to turn to teachers with apps again. I have to mention teachers with apps and Jane Kerr.
Yes, are they here? Is James and Jane? No, they're okay. I hope. Well, hello to teachers with apps, teaching with apps. Yeah.
Yes, they've been such a supportive crowd. I can't them all by name, but you know who they are. They've been totally supportive to me, and I'm sure they will continue to do so. The big honorary Flitlit crowd, as far as I'm concerned. And, I'm just so grateful for them. Thank you, teachers with apps, Jane, Tatiana, and Joe.
Oh, she's here, Joan. Hey, Joan.
Is Joe?
She's here. She is here.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you all so much.
They have been like amazing. But you know what I think? And it may not be, I don't want to add anything else to your to-do list, but I think honorary Flitlit patches of some sort. And it's like everybody in the comments should just automatically get one of those. 74 books in the series, in addition to the cards and everything else that's coming in. Again, this is a full-fledged system of production that supports every single learner, no matter where you are, no matter what reading level you're on. You can just you can just get it and start from there, because it really is a comprehensive system. All right, I'm so excited. I know the date thing, because I know all of the stresses with the publication and the formatting. I know it's kind of, it's annoying, but ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be well worth the wait. Trust me when I say that. Yeah, patches or hats like Melody had, during the production, I think would be wonderful. I myself would sign up for, I would want a patch, a hat, the whole costume, everything. So let's talk a little bit about what you anticipate coming from the release, if you will. We talked about what it is. We talked about, some of the uses. Do you have a vision of how you want, teachers and librarians to use it? Because I've said a little bit about it, but do you encourage them to use it any kind of way, or is there a way that you thought about when you were putting it together?
Well, blended learning, of course, is a big term now, isn't it? And blended learning is something that you and I are very, very keen to contribute towards. And it's something we've been doing for some time anyway. It's not new to us, but, it's something that I hope that we can contribute towards, because we're very much into physical health, mental health,
Yes.
Children's play. I'm very, very concerned about when children do go back to school now. They've missed out so much, and they've had to put up with all the problems associated with COVID, and with racial tensions, and with climate change. And I just don't want to feel that they're going to be straight into too much of all of that, that they get the support that they need psychologically initially, that they have time for play, that's very, very important as well. I think it's just a question of the support that the concept offers, in terms of, there's a glossary, for instance. It's huge. It took me a whole summer to create 48,000 words in total, that helps multicultural families, or anybody who's learning English as a second or further language. So you've got a total multimodal approach with the oral narration, and sort of UK narration as well. And it is just to offer them this multimodality, and that is cross-curricular as well. And I had to actually, it was very disappointing. I won a competition set by the Frankfurt Book Fair in 2016 to represent the UK and to take the Flitlits concept over to Gamescom in Cologne, 2016. And it was very, very well received there. And they said it was unique, and it was, sort of just ready for developing for digital purposes, for edutainment, for board games, for video production. And students at Cardiff University were all set to start work on some ideas for a web game before COVID came along. So that should be very, very exciting because of all the props within the project, the landmarks and the characters with their surreality. They're also surreal. And, for instance, one of the little characters, Posy Pomp, she has a surreal all eyes bag, and nobody really knows what the all eyes bag does or what it sees. The children have to surmise all of that, which is the and no two children ever surmise the same.
Of course.
So you have to, maybe 26, 30 different endings to a story, depending on how they envisage this bag as to what, Posy's bag is actually seeing. So, there's a lot of surreality. There's a character that swells, and there's a character that stretches. And so you can act like board game, for instance. You can take any of those elements as a weather feather, that depicts, taps into climatology, and there's a holistic plot, there's a farm plot. My favorite plot of all, I have to say, is Ponder Plot. I think you like Ponder Plot as well, because it feeds into what we're trying to do. And Ponder Plot has an area called Mistake Break, and a lake called Share a Secret Lake. And this is where, if you have a large floor map, for instance, that if you have a dressing up box and props, you can actually, the children can go into character. They can be somebody else other than themselves. And they can go to Pond a Plot, and they can actually come in on a Monday morning. They might have had a bad weekend or whatever, but they can actually talk about their problems in character. All they need is a hat or a cloak or whatever that puts them into a role play situation. And this is what Melody was telling me was working well for her. Being able to talk with the children, and they discuss problems amongst themselves, and they came up with ideas. And a lot of it is to do with social and emotional learning, as you do as well, which is a very, very important aspect for both of us. But I'm looking forward to maybe somebody, if the students don't get back fairly soon, and I hope they do, somebody will take up the concept for digitizing. I'd love to see them maybe on screen, or just digitized, sort of animated. That'd be quite fun, I think.
Oh my gosh, fun is an understatement. I mean, there's so much that you could do. You talked about, the characterization, creating a safe space for them to work through some of the social, emotional challenges. Again, all the commentary is now and more than ever, we have to do a better job of supporting our children, when it comes to their mental health, which means that we ourselves have to do a good job with making sure that our mental health is okay, right? And this is where, the community aspect continuously rears its head. Its imagination can do just that. Reading in and of itself is very good for mental health, right? It encourages mindfulness. It encourages stillness. It encourages, lexicon processing that the brain needs to gather and store information where it regards safety. And it's all neuroscience. It's really basic science stuff. But it stands to be revisited because, again, amidst this sudden shift, right? COVID was sudden. It was sudden. We may have had leeway. Oh, it's starting over here in another country. And now it's everywhere. It didn't take long. And so when we talk about the resilience factor for children, and adverse childhood, experiences, and all of these dynamics that contribute to mental health, we can't take off the table that how we're encouraging our learners and our scholars to learn will still be the foundation of how healthy they are, right? And if we ourselves weren't used to being online all the time, I didn't wear blue blocking glasses before COVID, not like I do today. It's because my work and everything that I do, I'm constantly on a device. Constantly. And so my eyes are, they're strained. So of course, when I can, because I love physical print, I'm reaching for a physical book. But even with that, I have to put on readers, right? Because of the constant, digital display. Children, while again, they may be resilient and they may be able to bounce back quickly, this is something that we still have to just check in, not just with them, but with ourselves, right? And so the Flitlits and all of the characterization, all of the settings, all of just its brilliance is a really good opportunity to just sit with, whether it be online through the books, and then go away and imagine or reimagine it being a personal place for, again, a safe space for them to exercise and to express those social emotional challenges, right? Because we're not face to face anymore. We're not next to each other anymore. And a lot of how we learn is, social support. Mm-hmm. But that not being the case, we have to find other ways to support each other, through these tough times. And so I love the fact that the Flitlits is so dynamic. It's so powerful. It has so many different uses, right? And so many conversations. And like you said, all of just the brilliance of it. You can just recreate anything, whether it's the cards, whether it's coloring, whether it's, imagining new endings. I can't even begin to think about what new endings would be, but I love that you're hoping that it's digitized, because I think it's perfect to be digitized. I really do. It needs to be a movie, a Broadway play. Melody started it. I think it's going to happen.
Well, Melody, very, very instrumental. She knows that, and
Yeah.
and to everybody involved, really, you know, because it's quite a solitary profession, you know, working at home on your own, and with my injuries, you know, sort of keeps me far more sedentary than I'd like to be. But my husband's an ex primary school teacher, and you know, he helps me a
Hi,
lot.
Colin.
He puts up with a lot. But you know, I think he enjoys it as well, because we've met so many wonderful people and been to so many wonderful places as well. And it's taken a long time, but then a reading scheme doesn't happen overnight. You know, it is a progressive sort of strategy that you have to work at and constantly adapt and make better, really. And you know, I'd like to get into more schools yet again, you know, because this is where I'm happiest. I just love being with the children and with the teachers, and
Totally.
you know, that's where things happened. You know, it was just thanks to that very first competition that sort of, you know, got me onto the publishing program, where I was more or less pushed towards the school and said, off you go and do your pilot work.
Yeah.
And I was so petrified, but you know, so the research and development came from there, and it's still going on. Really, it never ends. But you know, it's exciting to think what might come in the future. But you know, I'd love more and more people to come in and become involved, and for the teachers to become involved as well. You and I have talked about this, is to actually invite the teachers in, because I've got a guidebook for the teachers. I don't presume to take over their roles. You know, it's not my place to do that. I can actually provide the guide as to how I see project working in all sorts of different scenarios, and it's very comprehensive. But you know, I wouldn't put myself in their shoes, because they're the experts. There's so much provision there that they can work with, and every teacher will provide their own, you know, sort of take on things. And I'd like them to share, you know, any lesson plans, whatever they do with the concept. I'd like us to have a home where, you know, you and I can maybe create a list and invite teachers, parents, home tutors in, you know, where we can share everything. You know, that's my dream, really, not to work on my own. But, you know, that's where meeting you sort of picked me up, and I thought, I'm not the only weird one out there after all.
No, absolutely not. I've been weird with you forever, my friend. So no, there's no maybe to it. We're going to do it. And just from my out of school time experience as an educator, you also as an educator, we have Colin, we have all of these beautiful people who are joining us and leaving these amazing comments. Thank you all. I really do appreciate it. Like I said, I get super sensitive. My husband's like, you're so mushy, but I get sensitive because we are talking about children and what children learn and how they learn. And it's something that I'm going to take a stab at in the out of school time space, right? I'm going to take a look at, you know, how I would typically intersperse content like the Flitlits into the lessons that I prepare to facilitate. And I'm going to share that for sure. And I would encourage all of my network, albeit in school teachers, out of school time teachers, community organizers. I'm also going to encourage them, to do the same. You talked about the guidebook, which is phenomenal. I mean, it's like, it just keeps going and going and going, but it really does center everything you need, not just for the Flitlits, but, you know, concepts and context. It's so rich. I had something that I wanted to ask you, but of course we went with this. Oh, there it is. It was what you just said about Colin. He was like, oh, he was a teacher and you too taught. And you and I talked about this because it's important that teachers, educators know this. And I don't know if this contributed. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But when you taught as a health educator, one of the things that you noticed was just, you know, and maybe this contributed, like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, was the embarrassment, how, you know, children aren't always comfortable talking about certain things. And no matter what you did, you know, you just kept trying, but they were just not interested in having those conversations. where when we look at these opportunities, the opportunities that they're in, the Flitlits in this new system, when they're presented in this way, like you said, it creates a safe space for children to be able to talk about certain things. And it helps them to feel comfortable talking about everything because, you know, speaking is a literacy function. So I'm just loving that is like front and center all the time. But how much of your health education background, if you will, or your memories of being in the classroom, how much did you think about it when you were creating this? Because I know we only have a few minutes, but I do want to touch on the physical health, because we talked about the mental health and the online learning, but the physical health, how much did you envision, you know, that being a contributing factor?
Oh, it is hugely important, really, because, you know, I wasn't trained in the conventional sense. I was just trained specifically for teaching physical, social and sexual health in the classroom for 13, 14, 15-year-olds. Of course, at an age where, you know, they're very aware of each other. And we tried every avenue of, you know, boys on their own, girls on their own, classes with a teacher, without a teacher, but it was very, very difficult. Discipline was very difficult because of the subject matter, really. And of course, Cardiff, where I live, is cosmopolitan, and we had different cultures in there. So that's, you know, we had to adapt for that. And I did that for 12, 15 years, 3 different schools. Very, very difficult, but I did learn a lot about how children need space and they need the opportunity, other than just talking with a teacher in the classroom, that they can actually, especially for the younger ones, you know, that they can use escapism. They can dress up in character. They can have a role play corner. You know, they can pretend they're a character, and that helps them through. They can write in character as well. So I think it was the it was the experiences of you know, I wasn't very good at it. I wasn't, you know, trained in that respect. I wasn't very good, but I did my best, and I thought, well, I've got a lot to take forward from here that I can put into a junior project where I feel maybe we can start at an earlier age and do it in a way that's digestible and, you know, that makes it easy for the children and for the teachers and for the parents too, really.
Yeah. So we've talked about it all. I mean, this has been an hour is clearly not enough. We talked about a great deal, you know, the need, why this is so important right now, what parents, what the community, what teachers, what everyone can look forward to. And we've also talked about, you know, the physical sense, the social emotional sense, the mental health aspects. And so when we think about learning again as a whole, this was one of the reasons why, you know, the Meet the Author series was born. I wanted to do it, you know, via Imagiread, because it's not just about writing a book or buying a book for a child, right? It's so much bigger than that. It's so much more meaningful. And in this instance, and a lot of others that I've found to be true, it's once you have multiple uses and multiple entry points, you know, to reach a child and to change that child's life. It could just be one sentence, you know, one piece of the book that just changes the way a child looks at learning as a whole, you know, forevermore. I think that's the overarching goal. Would you say that's the goal? Is that the goal?
I think so. I actually, in Teachers with Apps again, I had a review by Joe Booth, and immediately Joe just understood the Flitlits right, you know, from the centre and afterwards. And you just know then when you've actually hit on somebody who understands and who works with children with special needs, and if they can see, you know, the prospects, if they can see the value, I'd be forever grateful to Jo for the wonderful review that she wrote that sort of picked me up at a time when, you know, I thought, I'm never going to come to an end with this project. But, you know, it happened. And then, you know, sort of meeting James and yourself and Melody and everybody who's been there, really, you know, it's not something you can possibly do on your own. And, you know, the costs would have been astronomical as well had I not had help from the Welsh Government. So, you know, I've got a lot to be thankful for, really. And I hope it just works.
It will. It will. I mean, Mary brought up a point, and I'm going to say this as we close. Again, imagination is currency, and this is where we are in the 21st century. Innovation. We really have an obligation to raise our children according to, what they can imagine, because they are the future, and the future is now. So Mary brought the point up, mental and physical, emotional health are important for our youth. It's definitely tapped into through literacy. And she's an artist, and we talk about this need for expression, right? To express and to revisit the concept of expression, because that expression is priceless. Just imagine it, just write it down, just draw it, just do it, whatever it is. As children, as adults, we're all being called to create the world that we really want to see, so it's 5:00. It is a life's work. It is a life's work, and we have to be dedicated to it. I know things will happen, challenges, they just keep rearing their heads, but we just keep fighting back with the art. We keep fighting back with the art. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Like I said, an hour. I knew it wasn't going to be not enough time, because we could talk forever. We've talked via Skype for hours and hours on end before. But I knew this 1 hour wasn't going to be enough time. But I'm so grateful that you're spending your evening, because it's evening there. I want you to get rest after this. I'm so grateful that you're spending your evening, and everyone from all around the world. I'm so grateful that you all have joined us. I encourage everybody to follow. Where can they follow you? Where can they follow you in the Flitlits?
On www.theflitlits.com, or on my Facebook page, which is just my name. I'm easily Googled, because I think I'm the only one with this name in the world. So that makes it a lot easier.
Makes it so easy to be famous.
I'm sure about that. But I will respond to everybody who's kindly put comments down for me. I really do appreciate it. And I'm sure the facility will be there that I can actually answer all of you. But I know many of you have been so instrumental, and it's an opportunity for me to say thank you. And also to you, Tiffany. And
more than welcome.
Keep me on track. You really do keep me on track. And
it's an honor. It's an honor. She still doesn't get it, ladies and gentlemen. Like, I don't know what I would do without Eiry. I really don't know what I would do without you, honestly. We share the same sentiments when it comes to our friendship, when it comes to what we've imagined individually and collectively. It really is an honor. And I'd like to thank everybody in your beautiful community that's spent some time with us, sharing all these wonderful comments. I mean, I'm just looking at them and I'm like, wow, what a wonderful Valentine's Day. What a wonderful International Book Giving Day, to spend this time and to just be grateful and hold you up. We're going to be like on the edge of our seats waiting for the re-release. That's not to rush you. We understand there's technical stuff, but please follow Eiry and the Flitlits. You will thank me. Trust me. Please follow. Please stay tuned for more excerpts, because we are going to work on some things, and there's some other, voices involved, but please stay tuned. And thank you so much again.
Oh, and thank you. And thanks to all my Facebook friends. We're a community, and they know who they are. And, hello, everybody. And, thanks for supporting me. And we'll carry on, hopefully, supporting each other as long as we need to. And, it's a pleasure. And thank you, Tiffany. I really enjoyed myself. Thank you.
More than welcome. Well, thanks again for everybody. Wherever you are, stay safe. Know that you're loved. Know that your contribution is valuable. And we'll see you next month. Second Sunday at 4 p.m. We have another special guest. By all means, follow us. If you haven't already, liked Imagiread on Facebook. We're also on Instagram. And of course, too, like our website, Imagiread.com. Thanks so much, all. Have a wonderful evening.
Yes, bye now.
Bye.
Everybody.